in the demo. I'll just do the intros and a brief slide deck, and then we'll go straight into it. So the topic today is getting started with type projections. Um, uh, Very in-depth topic actually. We'll be touching on the surface just for people who already know type projections. There's going to be it's going to be a bit of a refresher. For those that are just kind of getting their feet wet in the SCSM space, this would be a good opportunity to kind of get an idea of what it does. This is our standard slide, just going through the intro. We'll have a demo, then the outro. By all means, post your questions as we go along during the session. You can reach either of us via our emails, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that we don't get to in the session. And also, don't forget to join our community. It's definitely a place for ongoing contact and updates on what we do. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to John. I've got one slide before he goes into his demo, getting started with type projections. So over to you, John.
Hi, hello everybody. Okay, I'll explain first why I'm doing this. Is because recently we had a case on the Bordeaux where a customer was having difficulty with the performance of the Service Manager. And a particular view in Service Manager was very, very slow. They had built the view using the combination class for the asset management, the full asset management, hardware asset management class, and they couldn't understand why the performance was so bad. And what we did was we built them a new combination class, and that rectified the problem. What I am spurred on to show everyone how you actually create a type projection, because it is not obvious, but it is actually quite simple. So what is a type projection? I suppose the first thing. In SCSM, the data model consists of classes, and every object is a member of a class. And then those classes have relationships to other objects. So we're talking about incidents and users, and the incident will have a relationship to a user via the assigned user relationship or the affected user relationship. What a combination class does, or a type projection, when you're talking about the code, is allows you to see the combination of the classes. So the classes with their related objects. So you can see an incident with its affected user and its assigned user, for example. There are type projections which ship out of the box. Some of them are simple, some of them are more complicated. And it is very important when you want to create a view or you want to create a queue that you use an appropriate type projection. Not all the type projections will have the relationships that you need. And there's a temptation to use one that has them, but sometimes the one that has them just covers too many relationships. And when you open that view, a query is generated against the Service Manager database, which will pull back all of the properties of the related objects to all of the objects which are going to display in the grid, which can be a large amount of data, particularly in a large environment. So best thing to do is to actually break down what it is you want to see in the view, for example, or what criteria you want to put on the queue, and make sure you're using the narrowest type projection, the narrowest combination class. So just a class that has the principal class, so the main object, whether it's an incident or an asset, and those assets which are related to it, which are absolutely necessary for the display.
That's a good explanation right there.
Okay.
Worth the price of admission.
The advice is don't use the very large, a very large type projection unless you have to, unless you absolutely need to report on every single relationship object that's related to the original object. It's useful if you're pulling back information for a form, maybe, and you want everything about a single object. But if you're populating a view, when you could be dealing with hundreds, thousands of objects, you don't want to use a wide relationship, a wide combination class. So, because well, we're tight on time, so what I'll do now is I'll show you.
Go over to the demo. Okay, and let's.
Yeah,
I'll pass the screen over to you. Make presenter. Okay, you have it now, John.
Okay.
So in this example, we're going to use an asset management class.
We are, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
As that was.
We're not restricted to it, but it's an example for this case.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I want to create a type projection which shows an asset with a couple of related classes. First, we can use PowerShell to see what type projections we do have for the hardware. Let's restrict it to the hardware asset class of objects. And these, what I've done there is type in get SCSM type projection. And I'm assuming that the type projections are going to have hardware asset in the title. It's searching by name. And so it's a good practice to put the class of the object that the type projection is related to into the name, so you'll be able to search them and find them quickly. I would like to create, let's say, a type projection which includes the location, the organization, and the cost center. Now, I have a location owned by user and lease. I have location organization costs. I could use this one, but I don't want to use the associated CI relationship. So if I've got one that matches exactly what I want, that's fine. I can use that. If I don't, I can create a new one. So what I will do is I will copy the name of this projection type, and I'll go over to SQL, and I'll paste it in here like that. So this query is querying the Service Manager database. The management pack is the table where all the management packs are stored. So what we're going to do is just return the name, and we're going to get the XML definition of any management packs which contain references to this projection type. So I'll execute that. It's going through the XML files. Some of them are huge, so it can, and my lab is quite slow. So you have to bear with me a second. Okay, it's found one reference to this name. So we're pretty safe to say that this type projection is defined within this management pack. And there it is. This is the management pack. So a management pack consists of a manifest section, an initial identity. So we've got an ID, a version number, and a name. Then it contains a number of references. And references are other management packs. So these are all IDs of management packs in SCSM, and we need to use these to refer to other management packs, and we will write our own in a short while. And now we have the type definition section. The type definitions here, we've got classes, relationships, enumerations, type rejections, which is the one we're interested in. And the categories, got categories. We've got monitoring. We're not interested in those. Templates, which allows us to define templates, presentations, which are views, and then language packs. So we got a language pack for each language that we support. So to create a simple management pack, what I will do is just copy and paste sections of this management pack XML file. The ones we need are the manifest and the type definitions and the language pack section. So well, we only need a small amount of the language pack section. So I would copy and paste this into a text editor like this. Now, I have to add a reference. I have to give that reference an alias, which can be any name, but that alias then will be used down here. So we can see the alias referring to classes and relationships that are defined in Cyrusen AM, which is Cyrusen Asset Management. There's the name of the library, and that matches the ID of the library here. I can get the information that I need for the version from the category ID for this management pack. So, all right, let's create the type definition. To create the type definition, I just simply copied the type definition here, type projections, type projection. I copied this one down to here into my file, and then deleted every component. The components are the objects which are related. This is the name of the relationship, which are so I deleted every component that I didn't want to see in my final view. I ended up with this file. Very important that I then save the file with the same name as the library. So if I've given it the ID of Free Training Friday Hardware Asset Library, I need to name my XML file in the same way. Actually, I should. And that's it. Finally, I have a section here on language packs, which I copied from the other file. I used the type projection that I defined ID here. This ID has to be unique, so very careful with that. And that matches there. And that gives me a name that will appear in the SESM console when I've imported this and this type projection. And when I go to define a view and I look for combination classes, I will see this string here, which tells me what the asset class is and what relationships, what it's related to. So I save that file. And then the next step is that I have to seal it. In order to refer to this type projection from other management packs, so that if I create a view in another management pack, this management pack has to be sealed. Otherwise, the view will have to be defined in the same management pack. So its best practice will be to seal the management pack. So how do you seal a management pack? You do need a strong named key. Very simple to create with Visual Studio, if you've got it installed somewhere, you just open a developer prompt with, this is the community edition of 2017. I opened a developer prompt. I used sn.exe with the -k switch and a file name. So I used FTF thing, and that created the strong name key in the FTF demo. So now I've got the XML file, which I created by copy, pasting, and editing, and the key that I need. All I need to do then is, again, in PowerShell, I'm going to run these two commands. So this one reads the management pack file from the disk into a variable, an object, a PowerShell object, and like that. And the next command will seal it by applying the key. So I'm going to use the company name, Acme, output directory, etc. And there we go. We now have a .mp file, which is a sealed management pack. We can go to the SCSM console. We can import. I don't want the unsealed version. I want the sealed version. Open and import. And there we go. We've got it. We've got a new management pack. So let's jump over to configuration items. So, and under hardware assets, I will create a view. I could use the out-of-the-box create view or use Saracen View Builder. Let's use the Saracen View Builder. So we're going to create a full-time view. I'm sure everyone knows how to do this. I'm creating a new management pack for my view to reside in. Those combination classes. And there's my new type projection that I just created. That has these related classes as we defined here in the XML file. So this relationship, hardware asset has location, has organization, has cost center, aliased with these. And you can see that those aliases you can see the names of relationships in the. So we could use that as a criteria, or we can just display the information from these relationships. So We could use the display name, the manufacturer, model, location name, the organization name, and let's say the cost center name. Okay. And there we have it. The full free training file view was created. It's very sparse because there's very little data to display in my lab, but well, there will be when it opens.
There you go.
Right.
So that's a lot more manageable than a very chunky combination
For
class, for example.
well, for the end user, I mean, who only wants to see certain fields in a report that's been prepared, they will obviously, it'll feel much more responsive to them. So they'll see the effect only on the terms of performance, but they won't notice anything different otherwise. That it's transparent.
Hmm.
We're just displaying, restricting the information that's being queried from the database to a much smaller set of data sets. So we got a much smaller data set, and that makes it faster to run. Obviously, poses less load on the server, which has knock-ons on everything else in the server. You've got a lot of people running views using very heavy type projections. The chances of collision in the database are very high.
Hmm.
Get the performance will suffer. So this is one way to make sure that your SCSM server is performing well. Create your own type projections. They're very simple to do. I skipped the part where I copied and pasted. I
Yeah.
hope it was reasonably clear. It would have taken me a few minutes, but I was worried it would not be very interesting. Seeing me actually copy, paste, and delete rows out of it. But the message to take away is that it's actually quite simple to do.
Mm.
And
I think the key point there is to make sure with HTML it saves and it's properly formed. You've got tags that are
you've got your
ending.
XML, yes.
Yeah, and we're using Notepad++, which um, formulates the text, so it's a lot easier. It's much more readable. So that's
And
probably a
it,
preferred.
and it will warn you if you're trying to save badly formed XML.
Yeah.
But
So
so yes, use a good XML editor helps. As you are building these manually, it is the best way to do to create a type projection, in my opinion,
yeah,
is to do it manually. Then you have more control over exactly which references are using, so you don't pull in references that are not necessary. Though that doesn't really affect it that much, I don't think. But most of all, you have entire control over what data is coming back.
yeah. And I think it's one of those things that because we're doing it manually and we understand all the steps and the processes, once you start doing it a few times, it becomes much easier to do. It's a
Sure.
process that will make much more
It gives you,
sense.
it gives you some insight as well into what is happening in SCSM under
Hmm.
the covers. Yeah, the
Very
engine,
good.
in the engine room.
Very good. And also, and on that note, the engine room is very important to Cyrus and products. It's we need to make sure
Absolutely.
that that your SCSM environment is sound, because often we sit on top of that, and although we may surface errors, uh, sometimes those are coming from underlying faults in SCSM, uh, either process or design. So definitely worth making sure the engine room is clean and running efficiently. We're at the bottom of the hour, John. That was great. Thanks for
Uh,
sharing that. I'm gonna take control real quickly, and just or you can hand me control, I guess, and then I'll just finish up with our final slide. Um, okay, show my screen. Thank you. So that was really helpful. So I've got, as always, our closing slide is really just a call to action. Certainly, if there's anything that you've seen here that is of interest, the community is a great place to deep dive, ask those questions. We have a lot of our team involved in the community, as well as a lot of our peers in the SCSM and Cyrus space that can definitely answer questions for you. So definitely a good place to network. And if there's any trial products, any products you'd like to see a trial of, certainly reach out to us on team@cyrusen.com. It's a great place to get started with a relationship in our lab products and what we have to offer. And also, uh, I don't have the next topic ready for our next Free Trading Friday spot. We're working on a 2-week window, so not next Friday, but the Friday after, we'll have something up. Certainly, keep posted. We'll keep you posted. Most of the support guys have the link in our signature file, so be sure to check out when the next Free Trading Friday is and the topics we'll be covering. If there's anything you'd like to see, certainly reach out to us. You can reach out to us through the community or just hit us directly via email. If there's topics that you'd like to see in these sessions, just keeping them short and snappy and useful to our users. So on that, John, thanks again. Um,
Thank you.
Very insightful. I'm sure there's going to be a part 2 and 3 to this topic as we go down the road.
We only really scratch the surface.
Yeah, it can get very deep very quickly. So again, thanks for your time, everybody, and have a great
Anytime.
Friday and a great long weekend. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.